Students, have you ever been to a railway station? What have you observed at the railway station?
Have you noticed that the name of the stations is written in 3 different languages? Similarly, you must have heard the announcement regarding the arrival and departure of trains also in 3 languages.
But have you wondered the reason behind this? Why do they use 3 different languages to convey the same thing? So, in today's class, let's see what a language is, the writings and some great books. Well students, what is that sets us apart from the birds and animals? Yes, language is one of the important elements that set us apart from the other creatures on earth. All of us communicate mainly through languages, although the language that we communicate is different from one another. The human beings are the only living beings who have a language. Language is an important part of our lives. Students, can you make a list of the ways in which we use a language?
We communicate, learn and understand with the help of language.
What are the other uses of a language? How do we plan our classes and other activities in our life? How do we get the attention of others? How do we entertain ourselves? How do we understand the various things around us? Students, don't you think the answer to all these questions is language? Surprising, isn't it? Language is used to organize and plan what we do in our day-to-day lives. We make use of this language to get the attention of others. Try to recall how many times you would have called your mom or dad to show something that has interested you. It is through language, isn't it? The language is used for entertainment. When you read a book, watch a movie or write something, etc., we make use of language. It is through language that we imagine, understand and gain knowledge of the various things around us. Well students, here's an exercise for you. Try not to use the language and find out information or try to communicate. Also, make a list of various ways in which we use the language. We also use language to share our experiences with others. Therefore, the language is used in many ways to express various feelings to others. It is believed that the language has been spoken and used by the people right from the ancient times when they gathered food in the forest.
The language has thus been an important tool in spreading information from one generation to another.
Now, do you understand students how we build information and pass it to the future generations? The language is a tool that helps in learning new things from around the world.
The language is thus a medium that brings the people of the world together although they live far away from each other.
But students, have you ever wondered why we have so many languages? Why the announcements and the information are made in so many languages? The languages are generally developed by groups of people who live together. So, they start to call various things in their terms. Another group of people may call the same thing using a different term. This is how different languages like English, Chinese, French, Telugu and Tamil etc. have evolved.
Different languages use different terms for the things that we use in our day-to-day lives. What may be called water in English may be called something else in other languages.
Well, can you make a list of languages that are spoken in India for the next class? Also, many a times it so happens that the people from a group are separated into subgroups. These subgroups develop languages based on the old language. In this way, you can find many more languages in any country. Dravidian was the language spoken initially by the earlier people. When people from this group settled in different parts, new languages were developed.
The South Indian languages like Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, etc. are some of the languages that have evolved from the Dravidian language.
Another language that existed in some groups of people is the Indo-Aryan.
Sanskrit, Hindi, Marathi, Bengali, etc. are some of the languages that have evolved from this language.
Students, another interesting thing about language is, as people traveled and mixed with other, several words too were adopted from their languages. This is the reason why we find so many similar words in Telugu, Tamil, Sanskrit, Marathi, Persian, Arabic and English. So, how do we read and write languages? We read and write the languages with the help of script.
Many different kinds of scripts are used around the world, like the Devanagari script, the Roman script, the Arabian script, the Telugu script, the Tamil script, and so on.
Well, do you think it is easy to build a script? It took thousands of years for the people to develop the scripts that we are using today. Do you remember we studied earlier that the early man used pictures to convey the messages before the evolution of scripts. It is from these images that the language gradually developed. The people from Indus Valley civilization used the scripts 4,000 years ago, but then they were not able to read like we do now.
The various scripts that we use today in India have all been developed from the Brahmi script used by King Ashoka. One of the earliest inscriptions found in Andhra Pradesh is from Bhattiprolu Stupa, which was inscribed around 200 BC in Krishna district in Andhra Pradesh.
Students, can you guess on what did the people of ancient times write when paper was not in use?
The people in the olden days are believed to have written on leaves, cloth, bark, etc. But these got destroyed with time. They also wrote on pots by scratching on them.
The earliest writing of text that is available is the engraved inscriptions on stone pillars that belong to the Ashoka period.
In northern India, the people used the barks of the bhoj trees that grew in the Himalayas to write. As the barks of these trees peeled off like paper, the people could use ink and easily write on them. In South India, the people used palm leaves to write on them.
The palm leaves were cut to a particular size and a pin-like pen to scratch on the dried leaf and colored it with black ink. All of you must have heard very interesting stories and songs from your grandparents. But have you ever wondered how they had originated? Most of the poems and stories were passed from one generation to the other. These poems or stories were not written but told from one generation to the another. These are called oral literature.
The oral literature, which is the earliest form of literature, has been passing from one generation to the other by word of mouth.
Poems, songs and stories were composed and told to children, and thus they passed from one generation to another. The proverbs and sayings we use today were also passed on from one generation to the generations in a similar way. Now, let us have a look at how Vedas were composed.
The Vedas were also initially composed and taught orally to the people. They were later written down after preserving them for over 3,000 years.
Epics are common to all the states in our country. Students, what are the great epics of India? The Ramayana and Mahabharata are the great epics of India which bring out the heroic tales of those times.
The Ramayana, composed by Valmiki, is considered the first Kavya in Sanskrit literature. It is the epic of Ram and Sita and the heroic deeds of Ram to save Sita from Ravan.
Although it was initially recited orally by the preachers, it was later edited and written down.
The Mahabharata, composed by Vedas, is another epic of India, which is the story of the conflict between the Pandavas and Kauravas over power of the kingdom. It ended in a great war that was won by the Pandavas with the help of Lord Krishna.
Students, the Mahabharata is one of the largest poems in the world, which consists of hundreds of small poems. This was also recited initially by the wandering preachers and later written down. The historians believed that these epics were given the final form only 1600 years ago, although these were composed much earlier. We have learnt about Buddha in the earlier lesson. The followers of Buddha believed that he took many births earlier to preach dharma to the humans and animals.
The Jataka tales, which were collected and written around 1600 to 1800 years ago, is the compilation of all the stories of the births of Buddha.
Students, as you know, Tamil is the language spoken in South India. Tamil was spoken in a large part of South India in the early days. It is about the stories of heroes who have showed bravery in the wars fought for the defense of their tribes, about the love of heroes and beautiful girls, the beauty of landscapes, seasons and their effect on human beings. Many people in the olden days studied the reasons for the sickness of the people and the ways to cure the war injuries. The people collected herbs and prepared medicines and recorded details about these medicines and about ways to lead a healthy life.
The Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita were some such books that were passed on to the generations. Written by Charaka, the Charaka Samhita is the oldest collection of writings on Ayurveda. The Sushruta Samhita is a book on surgery written by Sushruta.
The two books are considered as the foundation for Ayurveda in our country. Students, Ayurveda is one of the traditional Indian systems of medication. They taught people not only on medicines to be taken during illness, but also on how to lead a balanced and healthy life. Like, how do we get fascinated by the moon and stars? The people in the olden days too got fascinated by them. The people observed the sun, moon and stars and noted the changes that took place in the sky over time. While some changes took place in the sky every minute, there were changes that happened over several days or months or years.
The various changes observed by the people in the early days include that the sky has 2 or 3 different bodies. There was sunrise and sunset every day, and the sun spread warmth to all the living beings on earth. The moon grew big and became lesser over the month. The stars shined brightly but did not change their positions. The planets, that moved slowly against the background of stars.
As days passed by, the early people believed that the sun, moon, stars and planets contained secrets about the universe, and they felt that they should understand them by careful observation and calculation of their movements. Aryabhatta is one among them who wrote a book called Aryabhatyam.
Aryabhatta in Aryabhatyam says that the rotation of earth causes day and night, and the sun did not go around the earth.
Aryabhatta is called the father of astronomy. Students, but how do you know that people did not agree with him in those days? Students, you must have already learned the decimal system. Do you know who were the first users of this decimal system?
Aryabhatta and other ancient mathematicians were the ones to adopt the place value system of writing numbers and decimal system of numbers. The Romans in the earlier days wrote the numbers in Roman numerals with the help of alphabets.
Well, can you believe that these people did not know zero and hence did not use it? As the Romans did not use zero, it created problems in additions and other calculations.
Once the zero was discovered by the Indians, it became easy for the people to write numbers that has been adopted throughout the world.
So students, today's class was on language, writings and books. Hope you have enjoyed and learnt about the various concepts. See you in the next class. Bye bye.